And good mooing, everyone. Thanks for coming along. First, I acknowledge the traditional owners of this land. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and to Aboriginal elders and peoples from other communities who may be taking part in this live stream today. So, yes, also it did work. Good mooing. Who was it that said good mooing? Keen said good mooing. Good mooing, Keen. Yeah, technology. Chip, Illuminator, Simon, Intermittent's here, and Elaine, Gerald. I've already said Dodgy. No, I said Keen. I said Dodgy, Sion. Lots of people here. It's good to see you. Hang on, I just woke up my voice assistant. I've got to hit the mute button on that. All right, I don't really have much of a plan. I am out of the, out of the groove of doing these things. So I kind of have to make it up as I go. But there are a couple of things we can cover. Oh, Dodgy. Oh, I missed being here for Erica too. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, no need for a plan. Hang on. I want to show you a picture talking about plans. This is squirrel chasing. Squirrel chase number 1. I've got to see if I can find this image. I was just looking up some images a few days ago. I found a whole bunch of like ADHD memes and all those sorts of related things. And there was something here that might seem relevant. Where is it? I'm just looking through a whole bunch of images. No, it looks like it's, I don't know. I'm not going to make you wait while I'm sitting here looking through images. I might find it in passing. Oh, there it is. No, that's not it. No, that's not it. See, we're off to a great start already. These things always go so smoothly. If I fall over in the first 5 minutes, then hey, I've got it out of the way. Yes. Okay, Michael says, OCD comment, camera just catching the monitor along the bottom. Right along there? Yes, it is. Just barely. The easiest way for me to fix that is to push the monitor down. Let's see if I can do that. Oh, it's on a height adjustable stand. There it goes. All right. That's actually easier than trying to adjust the camera, which is back. You'll see it for yourself in a minute. I'm going to go to like a roving camera in a minute and show you around, show you how it's all set up, and you'll see where my camera is currently located. All right. Michael, I'm glad I could relieve that stress for you. Take that away. You don't need that sort of stress in your life. Okay. A plan. I've got to think of a plan. We're all here. Tour time. Yes, Gerald. Good idea. Let's go for a tour. So I'm going to, when I'm doing this, I'm not going to be able to see any of the chat. So yeah, you won't be able to get my attention. And I don't have all the fun stuff that Sion does, like the sign and the speech synthesizer and stuff like that. I should have a go at setting some of those things up. So I'm going to switch to a wide view on that camera. Hang on, can you see it? What is going on? No. I think my camera went to sleep. Give me a minute. I'm going to, because it's just my phone, I'm going to unlock it. Is that going to fix it? Let's see if it comes back. Has it come back? Has it come back? Let's see. Let's see if I can get it now. Yes, that's it. Okay. So that is now my phone, which is sitting on a tripod over near the doors somewhere, pointing back at me. So, okay, this is it. Kind of, part of it. And what you can see there, this is what I was talking about with the camera. My main camera is on a tripod on the back of my bench, looking through a gap between these monitors, and you'll get a better view of that in a minute. So I had to push this monitor down a fraction to relieve Michael's anxiety. All right, now let's go for a little bit of a, how am I going to do this? Just going to take that out of the tripod. Go for a little bit of a wander around. So that is the main desk area, and you can see the primary camera poking through the middle there, looking through between the monitors. That screen, this one here, is the ATEM. I'll talk more about that in a minute. The ATEM is down there, so that's the preview showing all of the video inputs and the mixed output and that sort of thing. Secondary monitor on my computer, main monitor, and security cameras. And that laptop is currently running OBS, so that is the one that's receiving the signal from the camera and then feeding it into the ATEM. Then, backing up slowly, trying to do this smoothly so I don't make you all seasick. So overhead camera is there and working. That is now functional. There is also a working camera in the microscope, but unfortunately I can't use them both at the same time because I don't have enough channels on the ATEM. And main workbench area. I've been doing lots of assembly over the last... Oh, and there's Steve. Right there. Hey Steve. So I've been doing lots of assembly over the last couple of weeks, doing commercial stuff for clients, so that has been a busy space. Coming around here, I've got project boxes and things, the 3D printer. This is a secondary workspace. And I set this up because, well, ultimately what I'm going to do is have a dedicated assembly workspace in the cleanish room. But for now, we don't have room for that, so it's set up here. What I want this to be is just general bench space for me to work on. But I've had my son Tom working with me over the last little while. He's been doing board assembly, so this is the workspace where he has been hanging out. Backing up a bit more, there's an antique 3D printer sitting up there. And I've got to try to unlock this screen because I can't actually see what I'm doing. No, I don't think my phone wants to unlock. It's weird. So I've just got a black screen. I can't actually see what I'm pointing the camera at. Now this part over here, where these shelves have been set up, this is a test because my idea is to build a stub wall across this area, put my wall of drawers on it and a whiteboard. So I don't have the whiteboard here at the moment. It's still in the old lab and I really miss it. But I wanted to see what it would feel like with some kind of an enclosure here. And what I'm going to do is back up a bit and give you more of an overview so you can see what I mean. So what this has done is divided this room into two sections. There is the entrance area just around there, and then it's acting as a partition to block off this work area here. And what I was worried about was if I put a wall there, would it make this area feel too cramped? So I just put a couple of those racks in there. These are racks that are meant to be actually out in the other room. But I put them here just to create a visual barrier so I could see what it was like. And I really like it. It works really well. This sort of space is about the right size. It's certainly plenty big enough for one person working here. It's ideal because it's not too big. So everything is sort of nearby. With two people working in here, it's okay, but we kind of have to work around each other. But ultimately, that's not how it's going to be anyway. So I'm going to go ahead with my plan. I'm going to build a stub wall here and put all the drawers in place. So you can see down there, these are some of the drawers from the wall of drawers. And they go further back. And there are some more down there. So all of those will end up back up on that wall. That's the view through to the temporary tent cleanish room. We'll get to that in a minute. I still have to set up the kitchenette. So you can see there's the fridge, microwave just sitting on top of it. Everything is just piled in a big jumbled mess. There needs to be a bench built across there, like a cabinet or something. Fridge underneath, microwave on top, and just more bench space. Make that a bit nicer. And then I want to put a TV on the wall there. You can see that Mick will Make It is here. I've set it up and had it running again because, well, I'll get back to the story of the KOs. But I was in a situation where I really needed just to assemble a bunch of boards the KOs were not in a state where I could use them in production, and so I recommissioned this. It was sitting here for quite a while, just in a mess. It didn't have any of the pneumatics connected. The control system had all been unplugged. So it took a little bit of setup, but basically a couple of hours of work and I had it all back together again and running and doing its thing. So I've since assembled, I don't know, maybe another 100 boards or so on that just in the last week. So having that back up and running has been really good. But this bench is meant to be clear. My plan for this is probably to, I don't know if I'm going to keep this table. My plan had been to have a higher table than this, or I could just elevate it. I can extend the legs, put a chair on each side and make this like an interview area. So cameras on both sides and somewhere that I can bring guests in and chat to them across the bench with the TV on the wall. So this little entrance area would be like a studio. And still stuff in boxes. As you can see, lots of things that have just been transported here and not set up properly. Now you can see outside the tent there, there's an air compressor just sitting on the floor and a bunch of other random stuff. Another 3D printer. Through to the cleanish room, you can see the KOs. I better back up and make sure, yep, okay, video is still running, good. And let's go for a little bit of a walk out here. Hopefully this doesn't drop out. I really hope this keeps working. So in the front area here, this is going to be mechanical fabrication and everything is sort of just jammed in a big mess. What I need is more racks, like shelving and things that I can put things away, store it properly. It's all just jammed in. Right now my little reflow oven is just sitting here because there is a 15 amp outlet up under that bit of timber and that needs a 15 amp socket. So it's sitting there, and also I open that door and get a bit of ventilation when I'm running the reflow oven. I do have the fume hood for it just there, but I don't have the extraction fan set up. There's my little baby CNC machine sitting on a trolley that hasn't been set up yet. But my plan for this is to build an enclosure for it. That's all going to go in a big box, probably on casters so it can be moved around, and that'll sit out in this area somewhere as well. And then I've piled up boxes here to just to provide a barrier. So this is like a delineation point between the dirty area at the front and storage and other stuff at the back. Up the top there you can see there's a box. That's actually the box from my ridiculous 49-inch monitor. And you can see it's got little metal hooks in it. That's for hanging up circuit boards so I can spray them with conformal coating. So I bring that down and there's a UV light there, and the UV light is used for verifying coverage of the conformal coating. What else? All sorts of random stuff. Started putting shelves in here, so I've got some stock storage. As you can see, there's a whole lot still sitting on the floor. Floor needs another coat of paint too. And there's a lot more stuff that needs to be put into storage. So these racks, once that wall is painted, these racks will go much further along. Like the ones against the wall will go right to the end there. These ones will come along as well. So I'll have a lot more storage in here than I do right now. I'm kind of just getting started with that. And then around this area, all sorts of random stuff. You know, rack mount servers and bits and pieces that need to be set up and find a home yet. Yeah, random stuff that I just grabbed from home and brought in here. Oh, stencil printer. There's Sion's vacuum thingamajigamy. Server rack. Unify access point camera, and a camera just hanging up there. And let's come through here into here. Now I'm going to show you a little bit more about the KOs using video that I've got already recorded. Alright, so the 3 KOs are here. None of them are powered up right now. You can see I've just got some reels sitting in them, mostly to have somewhere to put them. And this is the KO that I've been using for most of the development of OpenKO. And you can see that I've got a camera here. So this is an IP camera just pointing inside the machine. And that's because I got sick. I spent days standing here. There was the Mac Mini was mounted here, and there was the keyboard and the mouse. And I spent days standing here typing and doing stuff. And it was freezing cold. This was a month or so ago. And I got totally sick of it. So I thought, this is stupid. Why am I standing here when I have a perfectly comfortable computer right through there with a chair in front of it in a room with a heater? So I stuck an IP camera here and ran remote desktop using screen sharing just onto the computer that was running this. So I could totally run it by remote control. And that way I could sit back in my chair and drive this. And I could see on the video feed what was going on, so I could make sure that nothing bad was happening. Okay. Feels really weird being so isolated from the chat. I've got no idea what any of you are talking about. I don't even know if this is still working. So I'm going to head back over this way. All right. Clip this back into the tripod. If I can get it in. All right, and are we still here? Are we still on the air? Yes, I think. Cool. All right, what have you all? Oh, camera clock still on winter time. Yes, camera clock. Camera clock. Which camera clock? I don't know what that was. Okay. If there are questions that I missed, you may have to repeat yourself. Keen said, will the stud wall go to the ceiling? If not, it will make it feel a little less enclosed. I guess, the stud wall or the stub wall? Okay, so I think what you're talking about there is the wall there to replace this. And I was thinking of not taking it all the way to the ceiling. Yeah, so take it to just a little bit above head height, and that'll actually give a bit of storage space on top of it as well, because at the moment up there I've got drones and things sitting on top of the rack on those shelves, and I could do the same thing. So I'll take it up high enough that it has, it has all the shelves and things, but then there'll be because the thing is, it's not going to be a totally skinny stub wall. It's going to be deep enough to have the rack, deep enough to have those drawer units in it. So it's probably going to be like 200 mil or so, give or take, thick, which means that it will be like a shelf up on top of it, and I can put things up there. Yeah, so that's good. Good that Michael says he's gone. So, DIY in the ghetto said, how's the IoT access point coming along? Okay, a couple of things. Where did I put it? I actually haven't even done the test fit of the PCBs. They've been sitting there. I had them, they were over here. And then I think I moved them just within the last day or two. Where did it go? I'm not even sure where that is right now. No, I'm just going to be wandering around aimlessly if I try to find it. If I come across it, it would actually be worth pulling it out and doing a test fit into the enclosure, because I had to modify the position of the mounting holes. Now that that's been mentioned, it's kind of bugging me. It's bugging me. Where did I move it? I've been moving everything around over here, just trying to get some sense. Oh, hang on. Yes, I have found it. Here we go. And there is another IoT access point box. I don't have any box location stuff working at the moment, which means things are all over the place, and I have to use my eyes and just look for them myself. So that is the stencil for the IoT access point PCB. And Hey, we may even be able to go fancy and do this. We can. I need another face camera in a different position for this. So these are the PCBs for the IoT access point, which I have not yet opened. And I need to see whether the mounting hole locations on this have been improved since the first iteration of that board. So, things I want to talk about today. I do want to try this and at least see if it fits mechanically. And I also want to, but before getting to that, I'll give you a quick update on OpenKO, because I've just been showing you around inside the, I've just got to find something on YouTube, because I've just been showing you around inside the cleanish room. So what I'm going to be doing is live streaming, playing my own video, which might be a bit weird, but oh well. Let's see. The thing is, I've got some unlisted videos that show the operation of the KO, because I've done a couple of reports on the OpenPNP mailing list talking about what I've been working on and how it's going. And I've made videos to show things and then linked to them on the OpenPNP list, but I haven't made them public because most people just won't care. It's like little snippets of stuff that's happening. So now I need to find where those videos are. Here we go. Let's play view. I'm gonna have to switch camera views in just a second. Which video is this? Oh, okay, this is conveyor control. Let's switch to, what do we need? That one. Okay, so this video that I will play in just a moment, I'll give you the quick rundown of what it does, and then as it's stepping through you will see what's happening. So this one is testing control of the conveyor belt to load a board into the correct position so that it can have parts placed on it. The KOs have conveyor belts with an adjustable back rail. The front rail is fixed, and the back rail is on these little linear rails, and there is a belt drive system over here on the right. So what you can do is dial up the width of your PCB, and the back rail moves to the correct location so that it'll fit through. And I've got control of that, all working in OpenKO. So, okay, just to clarify, I will back up this story just a little, roll it back. The KO pick and place machines run on proprietary software provided by the Chinese manufacturer. It runs on old versions of Windows. Like the machine that was running this, the factory setup for this is Windows 7. And the user interface is pretty horrible. It's missing a whole lot of automations and things that would be really nice. So my goal is to make these machines run with OpenPNP. What I want is the KO mechanicals and its onboard control system, which is the microcontrollers that do things like the basic motion control, as the back end, but the front end being OpenPNP, because that's what I'm familiar with. It's extremely flexible, I can customize it. The workflow for me is really well sorted. That's what I run on Make or Make It. So what I'm trying to do is create a piece of the puzzle that sits in the middle between OpenPNP as the control interface and the KO as the mechanical implementation of those commands. And there are many different ways I could go about this. So what I've been doing is working on this system that I've just been calling OpenKO because I'm so good at naming things. And what it does is it has a G-code interpreter. So from OpenPNP's point of view, and it's running on an ESP32. So what it does is provide a USB interface with a G-code parser on it, so that OpenPNP can talk to it and think that it's just a simple G-code based machine. It can send commands like G0x 53.2 y 27.1, and it will go to those X and Y coordinates. Now the way to talk to the onboard microcontrollers, like the motion control system within the KO, is their own internal proprietary protocol. All of the messages are 8 bytes. They all follow a specific format, and so what I'm doing with OpenKO is implementing the parser. So I've got a G-code parser, which is all working nicely, and I'm implementing the KO protocol on the back end based on the work that Glenn English did to reverse engineer that protocol, and gluing the two together so that you can receive a G-code command and it will then generate the correct 8-byte message to send to the KO that makes it do what the G-code says it needs to do. Okay, there's the summary. So my piece in the middle, when I talk about OpenKO, it is that little chunk in the middle, which is the ESP32 running the G-code parser with the KO protocol implemented as well. So what I'm showing you here is the KO being controlled using G-code, which is not what it is designed to do. So what this is going to do, you can just see off on the left edge here, just the corner of a PCB. What it's going to do is, first off, it fires a couple of solenoids. There is an air actuated solenoid down here, and there are sensors at different locations, so it checks whether there is a board on the input side of the conveyor waiting to come in, and it then brings the PCB in, so it runs the conveyor. It fires this solenoid which rises to stop the PCB overshooting. The PCB then just sits against it while the conveyor continues to run briefly. It stops the conveyor and it then raises. All right, getting dropouts. Oh, so it isn't just me. Okay, so everybody else is doing it. I wonder what is causing it. Open widget. You must rate limit your live video upload to approximately 1 second of video each second. Maybe my internet connection here is being a bit too slow. Okay, is the audio has the audio continued, or is it just the... Okay, thanks. Thanks, Eon and Dodgy. Is it just the video that was being strange, or was the audio dropping out as well? I may have to decrease the... Cable Tie, hey, good morning. I may have to... Yeah, I may have to decrease the data rate. I'm on a slower internet connection here at the lab than I was at home because I'm cheap. I'm just trying to minimize costs. Okay, cool. Audio went out full drop. All right, but hopefully it's back now. All right, so what it then does is it releases the PCB, it drops the solenoid, releases the PCB, and then moves it to the exit position, and there's a sensor at the exit position as well, so it knows when it's ready to go. So that was a very long explanation for 11 seconds of video, and now it's running. And in a moment it'll bring the board in, hits the pin, retracts the pin, locks it in place, and then it releases it and sends it to the exit. Now obviously in the meantime, now where did I want to go? I want to go back to channel content. Here, can I do view? Yeah, view on YouTube, that's the one I want. And pause and doink and... Okay, so this one is just some basic XY control. But you can see here on the right, I'm kind of blocking it. Hang on, I'm going to turn off my OSD. OSD off. All right. So on the right you can see my old laptop running OpenPNP, and you can see that there are no cameras there working at the moment. See, I wanted to see that other one again. Okay. I might do it. I don't know if Sion's serious or not. All right, so the OpenPNP on the right, and what the point of all of this was to demonstrate that it really is using OpenPNP to control the KO. So I'm going to be clicking on things in this video to make the machine move. You can see the 4 nozzles down there and a couple of feeders. So I've got control over feeders and everything. Okay, so the machine at that point, what I did then was just start the machine. I don't know if you can see that, just to make sure it's cleared. It's just homed the Z-axis on the nozzles. It's now homing X and Y on the carriage. And then I will be able to jog it around. So down here I'll be clicking on things, and that's just clicking. I think I'm moving it in 100mm increments at the time. And then 10mm increments, just moving it around. So see on. No, it's all right. I can show you that again. That is not a problem. I'll go back to the conveyor control. Hang on. I am just queuing it up again, and then I will bring the view back. Do it, and back to here, and I'll turn off my head so that you can see more of it. So the stopper solenoid, Xeon, is right here. The pick area, like the placement area, is it sort of butts up against the right, and then however long the board is how long it protrudes to the left. There is a little solenoid here and a thing here, so this plate that runs up under here is what moves up to clamp the board. So the sequence you'll see is it'll raise this solenoid, so this is the air solenoid, run the conveyor until the PCB butts against it, and then it will clamp it, and then it will reverse the process to exit the board. So I'll just hit run there. And I can send you this URL too. I should just, the only reason, see, it's hit against the solenoid retracts and it clamps, then it unclamps and then exits the board. So the only reason that I made those videos private is I just didn't want everybody notified, because you're not going to care. Most people aren't going to care about that. It's only people messing around with building pick and place machines that would have any interest there. Yeah, Keen said, seems like quite a bit of bounce there. Yes, there is. And the conveyor at that point was running quickly. There is some speed control of the conveyor. That was, I think that was running in like maximum speed mode. But yes, the pin at the end. Right. So Sion said, so is the stopper movable so you can keep board centered? No. Or probably not. I think the way it works is that the placement area within the main within the main body of the machine, where the PCB is located, it will always butt up against the right hand edge, and then the board will just come across, protrude to the left as far as necessary. I don't know if that stopper could be moved. It may be possible to unscrew it and move it to a different location, but it's not directly controllable. And there was another question Sion had. It was about the video. Was it someone said? Oh yes, so Sion said, is there no down vision on the main head? Yes, there is. Yep. There are 6 cameras. There is a single down camera under the head. There is a precision up camera, and then there is an array of 4 up cameras, which are the high speed cameras. And the array is on the same spacing as the 4 nozzles. So what it can do is bring 4 parts on 4 nozzles over the array of cameras and then image all 4 of them simultaneously. That's for the high speed cameras. Or it can move over the precision camera and then it does it one part at a time. But it does also have the top camera, which is used for fiducials and things. So the PCB ends up moving in on the conveyor, butts up against the stopper pin, is latched into position, and there's going to be some variation in the position just because of a little bit of the gap on the PCB. And also because the stopper is near the front edge, what I found is that when the PCB stops, it twists slightly. So it's always going to twist slightly clockwise because it's bouncing against a pin that is towards the front edge. And yeah, usually the top camera, OpenPNP can then find the fiducials on the board and it corrects for that alignment. Yep. Yeah, oh, Sion said, okay, couldn't see anything obvious as a down camera on here, but watching in tiny browser window. Yeah, in that particular demo, I didn't have any of the cameras running into OpenPNP. So on the screen on my laptop, there was no video feed at all. So yeah, that's why you didn't see it, because it wasn't there. But the cameras are there. Yes, fiducial fixes it, exactly. Okay. What was I doing? All right. Sion, are you watching on your phone? Doing it. You're playing on hard mode, aren't you? You can tell I need a drink. Going for the water. Hang on, I need to mute for a second. Okay, I think that's better. So, all right, now, where am I at with OpenKO? The current situation, so as you can see, in those videos, what I demonstrated was running the conveyor and XY control, homing, which includes an XY control of the gantry. I also have rotation control, Z-axis. I can open and close the feeders. They're Yamaha CL pneumatic feeders, and those are working fine. I now have cameras working to some extent. I don't have all of the factory cameras working, but what I'm doing is using video capture into USB and like RGB capture into USB. I won't get into the details of that. It's kind of annoying and messy. So I do have the factory down camera working. Oh, and I've got control of lights. I can turn the lighting on and off, control the illumination level, like the brightness. So the individual pieces are all there. I can now do, by sending G-code to my little OpenKO device, which then talks to the KO, I can now do 100% of the things required to advance feeders, pick parts out of the feeders and put them down on the PCB, which is kind of the important thing. So I can do each of the individual things, and I can chain some of them together. So I can do things like, I can run very, very simple batch jobs in OpenPNP. Like I can get it to put down half a dozen parts automatically. Like I just press go, and it does it all. But there is a communications bug which has been driving me a little bit crazy. I think I know what it is. So I ended up spending a lot of time over the space of a few weeks working on this, getting it to this point. And it's at the point now where it is the last niggly things that are more difficult to track down that are stopping me from being full production on that machine now, or on those 3 machines. The last niggly thing is some kind of a communications error that happens in some situations when it has already received a whole heap of commands. So if I want to run a job where I need to put down, a typical board, you put down 50, 60 or whatever it is, however many parts it is, it'll begin the job and then it gets to like 10 or 12 parts, give or take, somewhere around there, and it ends up in a confused state where the KO stops moving in the X and Y axis. Everything else works. The Z axis works, feeders open and close, all that sort of thing, but it won't move. But it thinks it is. So the thing is that my parser thinks the machine is moving. So what happens is the machine just sits there, not moving the nozzle up and down, thinking it's picking up parts and putting them down somewhere else. But it's just sitting there in one spot. And I think I know what it is. But it got to the point about 2 weeks ago where I was coming under a time crunch with commercial work for clients. I just absolutely had to get it done. So as tempting as it was to keep working on it, I had to just close the door on the tent for a while, which is why it's in that state at the moment with all those machines just sitting there, and get back to doing things the way that I knew was going to work, which is why I got Make It back up and running again. At least then I could do some things predictably. I knew that I was going to get an outcome. Whereas if I kept working on trying to make the protocol parser work, it was unknown. It was one of those things where maybe I was 5 minutes away from the solution, or maybe I was weeks away from the solution, and I couldn't tell. So I had to just call it. I may be 5 minutes away from the solution. And in my head, I've been going over this. I think I know what it is. And I think the answer is because it's related to the way the responses come back from the KO, and with some types of command, it has multiple message packets come back. Most commands you get a single message packet coming back, just 8 bytes, but some commands give 2 message packets, and my parser is not handling that properly. And what it's doing is responding back to OpenPNP twice. So it gets back 2 packets and it says, I've done what you said, and it then says again, I've done what you said, and OpenPNP thinks that it's already got a positive response to the next command that it hasn't even sent yet. So it's sitting there in the message buffer, so it gets an instant ACK when the ACK shouldn't actually be sent. It's an ACK that's coming back for nothing. Anyway, way too much detail. So I've been bending my brain trying to fix that. And I need to get back to that because it feels like I am right on the edge of being able to, like a couple of weeks ago, I thought I was at the point. I had it right there where I was loading boards and starting to run jobs, and they would get partway through and then this stupid thing would happen. I thought I actually had it to the point where I could go full production with them, and then this bug just has bit me. So yes, I need to get back to that, do a bit more work on my parser, and then I should be able to use those machines, which are so much faster than Make It. It's like Make It is and the KOs are anyway. Yes. Keen, good, you enjoy the detail. I will go into way more detail on OpenKO in the future. It's the sort of project, I find it really interesting. And I will probably do a video or a stream or something where I just go into that in great detail, and I'll show you my source code, and you can all laugh at me and tell me better ways to have done it, etc. Yeah. But that's probably enough for now. So the other thing, all right, getting back to the other subject, which is IoT access point. Right. What I need to do for this is find where the box is. Find where the box is for, let's go widescreen again. Because what I've got here are the updated PCBs. I've got my little project box, which has some Raspberry Pis and other things that are more valuable than gold at the moment. I haven't actually opened it, but in there presumably is the stencil for it. And what I need is the big plastic box that is for the IoT access point project. Oh, there it is. Wow, that was a long search. Well, this is cool. Chuck the GPS stuff back up there. That means that we can do a fit test. So this is the enclosure. Oh, here's the previous prototype as well. So we can do a comparison between the previous prototype. Let's get myself organized here so you can all see what's going on. And overhead. Right, this is the enclosure. I probably need to zoom. Oh, these are my 3D printed mechanical test fits from when I was doing updates to the board. This is my previous version of the PCB, which had some alignment issues. And I also totally changed my mind. I've gone away from using this rock chip based, what is it, NanoPi Neo, and I wanted to use a Raspberry Pi Zero W instead. But yeah, there are some mechanical problems here. These holes are in the wrong place, so I drilled them out bigger. Just, yeah, the dimensions weren't quite right. So, let us, yeah, I'm kind of in this habit of, whenever I get packs of PCBs from JLC or wherever, I always trim off the excess on the packaging, just because it's kind of annoying having the big flaps hanging off the side like that. Just makes it easier to stick them away. All right. Going the big rip. And let's see how I've gone. So what you can see here is on the previous version, I really need to zoom this out. Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to zoom out slightly, which is going to screw up my focus. Oh, no, it doesn't really screw up the focus too much. Good, don't need to refocus. So, old one on the left, new one straight out of the packet on the right. There are a few changes on this. Yeah, many changes actually. LEDs are still there. That's probably one of the few things that hasn't changed. This one has the rock chip based NanoPi Neo, which has Ethernet and Wi-Fi on board, and I've got this little antenna hanging off it. The idea with these holes here was to do 3D printed mounting brackets, so this antenna would sit here somewhere, floating above the PCB, well clear of everything, so that we don't get too much of an effect from the other electronics on the PCB. And what else? Oh yeah, there's a slot here to do a rotated mount of a Power over Ethernet module. Because this has onboard Ethernet, my plan here is there's an Ethernet socket here. This is the external one that you plug into, and then the data lines for that pass through to this socket. So this is just a pass-through connection, and then there would be a patch lead that plugs into here, wraps around the edge of the PCB, comes around here somewhere, and plugs into this. So the carrier PCB has an opportunity to tap off the lines necessary for power over Ethernet. Anyway, kind of a bit of a dodgy solution, but that was how I was thinking of making it work with the NanoPi. So anyway, everything changed. And over here you can see there are some diodes which are used for the power over Ethernet extraction. There are some jumpers here so that you could either use direct, like DIY PoE, just put 12 volts down it or something, or you could use proper 802.3 AF, run 48 volts down the line. There's a voltage regulator here. So what we would do is get 12 volts out of the PoE module, or 12 volts direct injected, and then regulate it to 5 volts on here, which would go into the Neo, and that's just a linear regulator. That's an automotive rated linear regulator, which is like the tough version of the common 7805. And on the new board, changes. Raspberry Pi 02, and then there are some, because it's been so long since I did this board layout, I can't even remember what these are. I think one of those is a temperature sensor. One of them is I don't know. I don't even remember. Some of that's just extra stuff that isn't essential to the operation of the access point. There is a quick connector on here because a couple of people, I can't remember who, might have been Austin or no, someone said they really wanted a quick connector because then we could add other sensors and things into the access point, which could be handy. Now, because the Pi 02 does not have Ethernet, I've implemented Ethernet out here. So this is a WIZnet W5500. There's its crystal and some resistor arrays and things. There's Steve saying hello to the power LED. Mounting location for power over Ethernet regulator. And then this is a switch mode power supply. So this is based on Austin's circuit. So Austin, thank you very much for suggesting that. I can't even remember what this part number is. Like LP2985 or something? No, that's probably wrong. Anyway, an inductor goes there, a couple of capacitors obviously, and the switch mode regulator. Then we've got Ethernet comes in here, so there's going to be, so in terms of the connections, it's going to look very much the same as this. There is a button on here, and the idea is that this is like a pairing button or an adopt button, because I want this to work kind of like the way Unify stuff does, where you can do, or you could use that for like factory reset, which could then put it back into a pairing mode so it can be adopted by a controller, because I want these access points to be part of the OXRS ecosystem and appear in the OXRS dashboard as manageable devices on the network. So we've got, there'll be an Ethernet socket there, the PoE bypass headers there, there's the 12 volt DC in, so you can just plug a plug pack straight into it if you really want to. What else is there to say? I don't know. Not a whole lot. So the next thing I need to do on this is assemble it, but I'm not really prepared enough to be able to do this on the stream today, because as you can see I'm in a bit of a mess around here. Can't really find all that many things, and if I paste it up and I can't find a couple of the parts, then that could be really annoying. So what I would really need to do is make sure that I have 100% of the parts all sitting here on the bench, go through the bill of materials, and have it ready before I begin doing an assembly session. So maybe what I need to do is an assembly session, I was thinking of maybe next Sunday, or maybe I could do a session as an off schedule. Okay, let's check the mechanicals in it. Yeah, I could do a session as an off schedule thing. This was what I was most worried about. It's perfect. Wow, that actually works. I've been doing all this talking and I hadn't even checked if it fitted in the case. Yeah, that's really nice. I'm happy with that. It's got a few things that it has to align with, because it's got these pegs that come through the board. These come through the board and then they're for screwing down. Yeah, these ones come through the board. So there are holes in some kind of odd places, and the mechanical position of these does not make sense. It's not symmetrical. It's a little bit hard to, well, no, you can tell on camera. I don't know why they did this, but look at this. See this stake on the left and this stake on the right? They are not in the same place on the y-axis. The one on the left is higher than the one on the right. And also the one on the left is further left. This one is sort of aligned with that cooling vent. And that's not the only weirdness. You take a quick glance at this and you would think, oh, it's symmetrical. It's got these mounting stakes and things. It's actually not symmetrical. They're in kind of slightly weird offset positions. And that is what tripped me up on my first thing, because I just took some measurements with a caliper and yeah, I didn't get it quite right. So I just made some minor adjustments, which is why I 3D printed these test fit pieces, and it's worked. That's good. So now I can screw it down using these holes here. These four are where the screws go in. These ones are just like locating stakes, mechanical support, something like that. Nice. And hopefully, oh yeah, it looks like you can see I've drawn a little red line on here. That red line aligns with this hole. So that looks like it lines up nicely. with the switch position. So the switch mounted under the PCB will come out through that hole in the enclosure, and this power socket here will come out through this hole in the enclosure. Well, that's a relief. I'm glad it actually fits. Fit better than my first attempt did anyway. So, I bet, without even looking at the chat, I bet that there is a question in the chat. Someone is going to be saying, why did I go from the NanoPi Neo to a Raspberry Pi Zero W? Let me come back to the chat and see if that question has been asked. Yes, oh, it was Austin who said, gotta have quick. Oh, Keen said, EEPROM with MAC address. That is a good question. I can't even remember. I have a feeling that one of those is indeed the MAC address ROM. I really need to, Michael asked the question. Hang on, I really need to open the board files for this so I can see what's going on. But I have a feeling that I didn't add a Mac ROM because I could use a Mac that was already in, or maybe I can't remember. All right, why rely on memory? My memory is terrible when I could just look up the answer. It's like being in school and having the teacher's edition of the IoT. Yeah, the teacher's edition of the book with all the answers in it. I could be... Sorry, I'm getting myself organized here so that you can see this as well. Why would I try to figure out the answer myself when I have the teacher's edition with all of the answers in it? I can just see it. Now, what do we got here? What do we have? So, this is... Oh, why do I have that so big? Raspberry Pi 02, chip select mode, RGB LEDs. Excuse me. ID EEPROM. Okay, that's different. And this is the ID EEPROM used on Raspberry Pi hats to make them identify themselves, so that what you can do is plug a hat into a Raspberry Pi and then have it automatically load the correct overlay and all of that sort of thing. So that's what these ID EEPROMs are. The reason there are two of them is that I dual footprinted it because, yeah, that's just the state of the world at the moment. So I've got this note down here. It says dual footprint, place either IC2 or IC3, but not both. And so I've got both SOIC8 and UDFN8. What else do we have? Oh, yes, Keen, you were correct. I did put a MAC address ROM on there. So the good old MCP24AA025E48, which just rolls off the tongue. The old classic. Yeah, so there's an I2C MAC address ROM. And what else do we have? What is on these other sheets? We've got the Ethernet interface. Ethernet with PoE, so I've got this bottom-mounted RJ45 socket or AP8C socket if people insist on me using that terminology, and it supports, so it's got these connections on it that support the power over Ethernet connection. And just to remind myself, I put some notes in the schematic symbol there, so I know where those ones are coming from. So then we go through the usual sort of bias resistor stuff that is typical on Ethernet data lines going into the W5500. So someone just a moment ago said, can you even get WIZnet ICs at the moment? Short answer is probably not, but luckily I have some. I have enough W5500s to be able to prototype and make a few of these. I don't actually know how many I've got, probably like 20 or 50 or something. Oh, DIY in the Ghetto said, are you still thinking about 3D printing a somewhat semi-transparent ring for the shell to make it look better instead of that blue ring? Yeah, I probably will. Once I get, it's just, I haven't got to that point yet. but that is probably a good thing to do. The other thing is I'm not sure how those LEDs are going to work, because they're just in like 2 lines. Ideally what I would like is a ring and make it a circular PCB, but the yeah, just for the first iterations I just made it a sort of semi-rectangular PCB and just put 2 lines of it, and I don't know how well it's going to work. It may make the whole enclosure glow, or it may look like 2 distinct lines. Until I actually run it, I'm not going to know. So yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do with the ring, but my idea was to 3D print a translucent ring instead of that blue one. Yes. Where are we? Oh, Austin said I've had no issue getting the WizNets. Yeah, cool. Stock almost 200,000. Wow. DIY says here in the US, WizNet 5500 are in stock almost 200,000. Yeah. Oh, that makes me happy. I feel better about designing that into a device now. In fact, let's do the needful and see what we can find. W5500 Ethernet shield. I want the chip on its own. All these breakouts. 5500 LQFP, that'll do. Yes, okay. So some Mouser, 179,000. DigiKey, 154,000. Oh, this is nice. Thank you for pointing that out. This has just made my day better. How is it that the stock level on this, just so that you can see it, how is it that the stock level on this is so good everywhere? And I'm assuming this is actually in stock. These look like real numbers. 20,000 is a fake number, obviously. That's from WizNet Germany. Verical 2,500, that looks like a fake number. But numbers like Mouse are saying they have 179,427. DigiKey 154,075. Those are real numbers. So let's just make sure, come on, that DigiKey's site is reporting that. Yeah. No lead time of 2 years. Factory lead time 23 weeks. Yeah. 179,427 can dispatch immediately. Those are the magic words. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. All right. Now, if only I could get AVR MCUs, I would be so happy, because then I could make Ether Megas again. Everybody wants Ether Megas and I can't make them. Really sucks. Keen says Verical probably only do full reels, so the rounded numbers could be right. Yes, that's true. There are a few there, like on 500 increments, 2 on Verical, 67,500 on FutureLec. Yeah. Yes, they probably are reels. You're right. DIY says no AVR, some until 2024, I see. Yeah, but even that, I wouldn't trust that number. I have this feeling that some okay, this is going to be me with wild conjecture. You might have different opinions on this. Hearing other opinions would be interesting. Let's, just while I talk about that, let's see, 80 mega, let's go for the 328. Let's check this one out. Yeah. Let's look. What have we got? 0. Oh, I was just scrolling without even looking at the numbers. So there are some boards with breakouts on them. If you look at all of the just the bare chips, like this one, 0, 0. Let's go to like this. This is what should be pretty much a standard sort of thing. A regular TQFP32, 80 mega 328. The sort of thing that a few years ago was the most common part in the world. You could get it anywhere. 0 stock everywhere. Lead times, stock. Yeah, WinSource, I don't trust them anymore. They've screwed me over. So there are people that claim to have stock, but I've never really had much luck with these second source places. All right, let's just go to let's go to Mouser. Let's just see what they have to say about this part and the lead times. Because the thing is that I think what a lot of distributors are doing is putting lead times on that are just like a year or 2 years ahead on faith that it is going to arrive. So this, for example, it says expected 25th of September 2023. That's a lie. What that would be is they have just added a year onto whatever the last time was that they updated their stats. So that would have been 25th of September or 28th of September or whatever, 2022, that they updated their data on this product. And then they just, it's like a, we don't know, let's just add a year onto the date and then make that the expected date. I don't think they're going to arrive then. Okay, weird idea time. Just, Austin said what I was kind of in a long-winded way getting to. I'm not expecting many AVRs coming back to the market. RP2040 and ESP and RISC-V taking over. So, AVRs. I have a sneaking suspicion that they are never going to come back. And the reason for that is they are based on an old process technology that no one wants to build fab capacity for. So all of the investment in fabs is going into the newer processes. And I mean process, not processor. So the smaller features and all of that sort of thing. So they're really optimizing around where the money is, which is newer designs. Now, there is a lot of demand for AVR. They've been used a lot in automotive, like microchip stuff in general. It's been used a lot in automotive over the years. And, yes, I said the wrong thing, Gerald. So they, you would think that because of the demand, there would be a lot of incentive and impetus to develop fabrication capability for those parts, because if Microchip could produce AVRs, they would sell them by the bucket load. Like there are people that really, really desperately want them. The problem is that the production capacity is not there, and it either won't come back ever, or it'll come back a couple of years down the track. So what that means is all of the people who are in the situation, like if you're, say, an automotive company and you are relying on, you have an existing design that's got a microchip part in it, and you want to keep producing cars, you need to come up with some plan B. And that plan B is not buying random small parts from second source suppliers where they've stripped them off old PCBs with a blow torch or something. So, yeah, and Gerald says, I see people on Twitter crying for the AVR chips all the time. Yeah, but the thing is, if they can't bring production back online soon enough, like if they can't do it within a reasonable time frame, everyone's going to move on. People that need to be shipping product can't sit around for a couple of years. They're going to say, well, I need something now. And they're going to end up redesigning their product around some other part that is available now or has a better prospect of being available. So it's a really dangerous sort of situation for suppliers of older 8-bit microcontrollers. They might find that they do manage to bring them back. You know, they might get production running in 2023 and then AVRs and things become available again. But by then they might find nobody wants them. Well, not the hobbyists would certainly want them, but they might find that their traditional higher volume customers have moved on and they've got something else designed into their boards. So, I don't know. There was a question a moment ago, someone saying, is the Arduino still being developed? The Arduino works. Like somewhere up there, I've got a prototype. It runs. It's got a WISNet W5500 on it. It all works. Problem is that I can't produce them because of the lack of the ATmega 328. So, and this is why I sent out an email to the Freetronics mailing list. It was about a month ago, and I was asking for input on what should replace the Ether 10 and the Ether Mega, because alright, here's the lowdown. Freetronics is dying, and it's dying because the flagship products, which are the Ether 10 and the Ether Mega, can't be produced. There are many, I can't remember exactly how many, but Freetronics has something in the order of 70 or 80 different products, but it's the classic Pareto principle sort of thing, where a small number of products are the majority of the sales and the revenue, and the Ether 10 and Ether Mega were really carrying the company. And the problem is that because I can't supply those now, Freetronics sales have pretty much died. I still get occasional sales of modules and other odds and ends, but they're typically, like a $20 sale for a sensor and something like that. You get what I mean. And so what I really need to do is figure out some way of replacing the Ether 10 and the Ether Mega. And I've had a few really interesting suggestions, like doing a version based on the RP2040. Austin says ESP32 could be worthwhile. Yep. Maybe some M0 and M4, the RP2040. Yep. So this is all along the same lines as what I've been thinking of. Dentistries. Yes, I do have it. In fact, you might even be able to see it. I had your package. No, it's not there. I moved it. It's over there. I can see it from here. Sorry, this is a subject jump, but it is important because I received a package from Dentistries with some stuff in it. Now, I had been intending, it's actually been sitting here for a couple of weeks, and I'm really sorry I haven't got back to you. As many of you know, I'm not going to get into it now, but my personal circumstances are rather screwed up right now. And I received the package. I wasn't actually expecting it. And I just cut the top of it open and looked inside and went, oh, this is cool. So I've got, and then I closed it up. Yes, Jason. So Dentistries is JC Dentistries, I think, is their Discord name. So Josh, yes. But I didn't want to go into it deeper because I thought I should just open this and go through it on a stream. And that was actually one of the things I was thinking of doing today, but then I didn't end up getting myself organized for it. The box is sitting just over to my left, and maybe I have been resisting the temptation because it has been very tempting to just pull everything out and go through it because it looks like there's some cool stuff in there. There's some it's OXRS related things. But I would like to do it on a stream so other people can see it as well. So yeah, maybe that can be next Sunday's live stream. Yes. Right. Now, sorry, I'm just glancing back at comments. I just saw a couple of funny ones, but out of context, they're not worth repeating. Aaron said, I may be wrong, but it would be interesting to see what move Arduino themselves makes. Given the community support with libraries, etc., it's critical to the new board's success. Right, yes. So debating whether to go into a whole thing about Arduino or not, and the state of the Arduino project. And when I put it like that, it sounds like I've got a rant. I don't really have a rant. It's more like just an observation of where things are going. So, right. Oh, I'm doing the classic thing now where there are squirrels letting off fireworks in my head, and I am doing my best not to be distracted by them. Because there are about 3 different trains of thought that I want to follow. So, pinning them. James is talking about the ground plane on the IoT access point. I'll get to that in a second. Intermittent said ESP32, yes. And Aaron was talking about the what the Arduino community would do, or the Arduino project. So, the Arduino project. I have a feeling that the thing is, this is not a fully formed thought, so it may be way off base and I may be being unfair, but the feeling that I have is that over the years the Arduino project has kind of lost its way a bit in terms of its what made it so great in the first place, which was very low barrier to entry, basic boards, and without any complications. It's tough to be in the situation where the Arduino team were when it became super popular, because for a project like that, how do you make the project self-sustaining? Like in terms of the input required from all of the core team members and all of the effort required to continue developing new boards and keep iterating and doing all of the software development. There's a huge job in that. All of the library development for supporting all the different peripherals and new sensors and things. So, sorry, I've got to try to ignore chat. A squirrel's going to let off another firework in my brain. So what it looks like to me is they went through this process of trying to figure out how they could continue to be relevant into the future and support the project, which is why they ended up doing so many partnerships, like partnerships with Intel and other companies, where essentially there were like official Arduino boards that were not developed by the Arduino team. It was like a team at Intel, for example, who would come up with a design for a board, and then the Arduino team would kind of support it in the IDE, and they would bless the board and put their logo on it, presumably in exchange for a bunch of money, and then it would become an official Arduino. But it ended up with this sort of fragmentation of the Arduino hardware ecosystem with all of these different platforms, like different electrical platforms, different processor architectures. And there was a difficult time with things like libraries, which I think has been largely been ironed out, but the situation where you would have a library for something and it would work on some models and not on others. Now there's much better architecture support and tags and things that allow libraries to specify which particular architectures they run on, so you're only presented with the compatible ones. So I'm not even sure if there's a point to this, except yeah, to me Arduino feels like it is not the simple story that it used to be. If you're introducing someone for the first time, say you've got a friend who is a bit into tech and you want to give them something to get started with, and they say, oh, I've heard about this Arduino thing, I should buy a board and like a starter kit and just try it out. Yeah, Unexpected Maker said there's no money in entry-level boards and hobby users. They needed to get more into the educational space and more commercial spaces to ensure sustainability. just my humble opinion. Yes, exactly. You're exactly right. And this is why I was saying, in order to have longevity in the project, they needed those commercial arrangements. They were in a really difficult spot. The thing is that success can be hard. When you have a project, particularly an open source project, where the revenue that comes in does not scale with the popularity of the project, it becomes a huge burden. It becomes a big support burden. There's just so much work involved in it. And so when people are using all of your work and then buying, their money is going somewhere else. How do you make that sustainable? So that's why they made those decisions in terms of entering into the strategic relationships that they did and those partnerships. Hey, DIY's back. It's all right. We can all relax now. So yeah, this is why I was hesitant about bringing this subject up, because I'm not saying this to be critical of the Arduino team. It's an observation about the process that they've had to go through over time in order to make their project sustainable and to keep developing as technology changes, new microcontrollers come out, focus changes. Like when the original Arduino came out, of course, connectivity was not such an issue. It was used for self-contained projects, but now everybody wants Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and Ethernet and LoRa and everything else. So it's not enough to simply keep producing the same boards as they did 15 years ago. There need to be new boards, there needs to be new development and support for all of these changes within the ecosystem and expectations. And they need clients. This is related to what Sion was pointing out. They need partnerships and clients where revenue will come in to keep the project going. Otherwise, the project could fail as a result of its own success. It could just implode under the pressure of all of the demand of people wanting support and just the size of the community and the involvement of everything that goes into it. If you don't have some kind of a commercial basis for it and revenue coming in, then that can all collapse on itself very, very quickly. Yeah. Okay. So, where I was going with that was, that's right, this all came out of discussion of AVR availability and the Arduino and what to replace it with. So, what I would like to do, in a funny way, this puts me in the same position as what I was talking about with those car companies earlier, where you have to do something. You can't just wait multiple years unknown to see if a part is ever going to come back. So what I need to do to keep Freetronics relevant, same problem as with the Arduino core team, is come up with something to replace the Ether 10 and the Ether Mega. And that could mean going for something like the RP2040, could also mean ESP32. So I've had a lot of positive feedback saying ESP32 plus Ethernet is useful. And the thing is, we know how to do that. Like, we've been doing the OXRS stuff. We've got the RAC32, which is ESP32 plus Ethernet with PoE. What I could do is do a version, but the other question, of course, is form factor. How important is it to make the form factor the same as something like the classic Arduino Uno form factor, or should it be something completely different? And there's been this move towards other form factors over the years as well. So you're like Adafruit's own boards and like the Feather sort of ecosystem. There are so many different options now to go down. But yeah, I'm not really prepared for much more of a discussion about that. Oh, Intermittent said, I've also got an ESP32 board with Ethernet, which indeed is a popular variant. Yeah. And of course, the other thing is I/O voltage. The classic Uno is 5 volts, and yeah, Scott says the Uno form factor sucks. Yeah. With the newer form factors, there's much more of a move to 3.3 volt. And one of the dangers, for example, of making an ESP32 based board, I could make an equivalent to the Ether 10. So Uno form factor with Ethernet on it and an ESP32. But it would be 3.3 volt I/O. And the danger with that is that when you have an Uno form factor board, there is this expectation that you can grab a random shield and plug it in and it will work. And shields typically need 5 volt I/O. Yeah. Yes. So, and I'm not interested in inventing a new form factor. I think that would be a big mistake. It would just totally dead end anything that I did. So Austin said, whatever board you should do should be breadboard or perf board compatible. Yeah, which is one of the advantages of things like the Feather format. And, oh yeah, Stephen suggested ESP32 based board with logic level shifting. That's another one. Now, the other thing, of course, is that the classic ESP32, so the Pico D4, has quite limited I/O, and its analog performance, like its ADC performance, is actually pretty bad. There is surprisingly wide variation on the analog inputs if you don't have them calibrated. Like really, really bad. Right. So anyway. Now, there were a couple of other things. That's right, okay. So, oh, outside the box, Keen said, I still have a lot of ATmega 328s if you need some. Okay, cool, thanks Keen. Yes, I know we were communicating about that just a little while ago, and then I kind of let it drop. Part of the reason I let it drop, and I apologize for that, I went quiet on you, was the personal circumstances going on. The last few months my life has been it's been a mess. I'm not going to go into that in detail on the stream. Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm sorry. Things have been difficult. So, Zion said, no way you can make a fully compatible mega board from an ESP32 that would work with all usual libs. Yeah, you could. There just isn't enough. There isn't enough I/O, and library support is a problem. Now, there are I/O breakouts and things that can help overcome that, but yeah, I went down that sort of thought path for a little while. Could I put an ESP32 on a mega format board with I/O expansion? And I don't think it's worth it. I'm not sure that there would be the market for it. So it would, yeah, it'd be a lot of work for possibly no benefit. I don't know that people would care. Yeah, as Stephen said, there just isn't a lot of chips that replicate the amount of I/O a Mega has. Yeah, that ATmega 2560 has a crazy number of I/O pins on it. It's hard to find anything that is in that sort of class that can give you that amount of I/O. So Austin suggested add a good I2C ADC. Yep, that's true, we can do that. The other thing is that there is a project, I've gone blank on the name, I'm going to see if I can find it. I/O expander, there is a project to do an open source I/O expander with driver libraries. That is, I don't even know where to begin. Someone else will probably know of this project and can remind me. It's I/O expander. Yeah, I'm just using bad search terms at the moment. But there is a specific project that I came across where there is a microcontroller preloaded with firmware and gives you a whole bunch of configurable I/O. And the idea is that it's intended to work as a peripheral to another microcontroller. I think it's based on a PIC microcontroller, but it presents itself as if it is a configurable, like programmable I/O expander. Right, now, sorry, while I'm talking to you, I'm clicking around, Googling for stuff, trying to find it, but I'm not going to find it. Yeah, now, going back, I'm scrolling back here. All right, so I'm trying to go back to those trains of thought that were flying back past me earlier. All right. Yes, so James was talking about you may want to trim back the ground plane on the IoT access point and or get the antenna further away from it. Okay, so my plan with that is to use an external antenna modification on the Raspberry Pi. So heading back over this direction. So with the NanoPi Neo that I had on the first version, you can see that there is a connector on the PCB here, and then I've got this external antenna so that it can be mounted far away from the PCB, mounted up here somewhere, just under the cover. And my plan is to do something similar to that on the new one. Where did the new one go? Oh, it's inside the enclosure. Over here. So the thing is that the Raspberry Pi 02W, and the plan is that it's inverted, so it's going to go face down onto the PCB, which is not the way I wanted it. There are all sorts of little weird engineering constraints here. No, supply chain constraints. So the thing is that when you buy a Raspberry Pi 02, you can either get it with no headers, just like it'll have just pads like this, or you can buy it with pins pre-fitted. Now, sometimes, because it is so hard to get Raspberry Pis at the moment, sometimes you can get them without the pins, sometimes you can only get them with the pins. So what I had wanted to do was mount the Raspberry Pi just in its normal orientation and solder pins underneath it so that it could go into the board here. But the problem is, that means that if I can only get a Raspberry Pi with pins pre-fitted, it won't work. So I had to compromise and mount it so that the Raspberry Pi goes upside down. In fact, I wonder if I've got a Pi 0 sitting here somewhere. Not right here. I've got a couple of them around, but not... Maybe in this box? Aha! Here's one. Look, I'm rich. I have a Raspberry Pi. So, which one is this one? Yeah, Pi 02. So it's, just to recap, I wanted it oriented like this because that leaves easy access to things like SD card and everything else. But if I can only get these with pins on them, it has to go that way. So that's the idea. Is I'm going to put a socket on here, there will be pins on this, and then the Raspberry Pi will be pluggable on top of it. But I'm going to do the antenna hack. Just on here, it's a little bit small, it's hard to see on this because the camera is not zoomed in. There is a pad there to put an antenna connector. And what I'm going to do is fit the antenna connector, and then you've got to do a little mod on the PCB, and then you can plug an external antenna into it, just like this. So this will be mounted upside down there with the cable coming out to the external antenna, and these holes here are for making 3D printed brackets that will be screwed in from the back of the PCB. That's why it's got this circle around it. So screwed in from the back of the PCB, there will be brackets that will hold the antenna across here somewhere. So it'll be well clear of everything else on the board. So yes, that was a very good observation. Was it Michael? I can't remember who said it. Someone pointed out that I needed to pull the ground plane back away, because if I simply used the onboard antenna on this and I had this mounted down here, it would have a bad effect on the effectiveness of that antenna, because it would be sandwiched down close to the ground plane here, and it'd be bad. But hopefully we'll avoid that problem. Now, another problem. I'm going to see my hand. All right, I need an ATEM Mini Extreme because I don't have enough inputs. So one of the reasons I can't show you this, oops, where is it? I can't show you this under the microscope because I can't connect the microscope to the ATEM at the same time as the overhead camera. I can only have one or the other. And I can't have another camera when I'm in this view because that camera is using up an input. And I also need an input for the portable camera. So I really need at least 3 more inputs on the ATEM. So at some point I'm going to have to replace this. So Intermittent said use an HDMI switcher for doing it cheap. Yes, and that's what I have done in the past, but there is a problem with that. The problem with the regular ATEM is that it only has a single channel overlay. So when I go to, just as an example, this view, I've got 2 video sources coming in here. I've got the overhead camera and I've got the face camera. You can't have any more than that. And what I need to be able to do is bring in up to 4 video views in the same composition because I want to be able to do things like overlay the UT61 multimeter display up on the screen up here. Like I used to do it with OBS, but I can't do that without more inputs. Yes, so no, I need more inputs, but I also need the 4, I can't remember the term for it. Anyway, the ATEM Mini Extreme can bring 4 inputs in simultaneously and composite them on the screen. Sion said, do I have any Rack 32 in stock? Can't see any on your website. Right now, no, sadly. The last little while I have been in such a mess that I've let the stock slip on things. Hopefully now I'll be able to get back to doing some sort of, I'll be able to get back to doing normal productive things and building boards. I've got so many pick locations out on my shelves out there that are just empty. There's nothing in them. My stock display screen mounted up on the wall there is just like columns of red. Everything out of stock. So, yes. Right. Where am I going? I don't know. See, we're wandering around all over the place. It's a classic stream. I need to take a deep breath. Think about my life. No, I do not want to sell you death still. Jordan said I was considering the ATEM Mini SDI Extreme ISO. Yeah, that would be nice. What I would really like is the Extreme ISO because then I can do record. Yeah, anyway, I'm not going to get into that. Once I get out of my current situation and things have improved, I'm going to get myself an ATEM Extreme ISO. Yes. Where am I? Where am I? All right. And what's the time? 11:40. Time is getting on. Okay. I have probably missed a bunch of stuff. So, Sion said, but none of the ATEMs can flip an HDMI feed. Yeah, I hadn't actually even thought about that. I haven't had that requirement, but that could be a problem. What I'm doing at the moment is a combination of OBS and the ATEM. So when I go to, when I do the intro countdown video and everything, that is being fed from OBS. When I do the exit video, that's OBS. And in fact, when I switch to Hello, the wide camera view. This camera on my phone is being received over Wi-Fi by my laptop, and this is actually an OBS scene that is then being fed into the 8M. So I'm using a combination of OBS and the 8M. But in order to make the things that I want work, I need more inputs and I need more of the video overlay channels on the 8M. Sion says, my microscope just flipped 180 from my DSLR down camera. Oh, that's annoying. Yeah, cool. Yes, yeah, I have done some transforms in OBS as well in the past, but I'm not using it as heavily now. Right. Yeah, okay. I'm starting to feel tired. I'm out of practice of talking at full speed for 2 hours straight. Okay, time for another quick refreshment break. Better. Okay. All right. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like my battery is going flat. I'm wondering about starting new topics or sorry, I'm just looking down at the thing on the bench, the IoT access point. No, I'm definitely not going to start assembling that now. There's a little bit of temptation there to do it, but I'm not going to do it. So Dodgy asked an interesting question. Okay. See, I'll get back to that, Dodgy. Sion said, I've been running on 5% battery for a few weeks now. You must be at 1%. Yeah. Yeah, the human battery we're talking about, not the phone battery. Yes. So, Sion, I hope that situation improves for you. Your last stream, I didn't see your last stream until the next day. I'm not even sure if it was the most recent stream now, but it was the one where you were talking about you ended up talking about the problems with your pick and place machine. I think that might be the most recent one, but it was the one where most of the time you were ranting about the VNA. And yeah, I didn't see that until the next day, but it looks like you have a lot that you're dealing with. So I hope that improves and you figure out a solution to that problem. Yeah, my battery is a little bit depleted. So Doji asked the question. Johnny said, stop mimicking my beard, I'm 60, you are not. Yeah. It's pretty grey though. So Doji said, do you want to talk about what you're doing at your house with regards to software and hardware changes? All right, this is a subject that is I'm going to be cautious about this. It's part of an area that I really do not want to talk about on stream, certainly not in any detail. I've talked about my personal situation a bit on Discord, so there are certainly people here that know about it, and I've talked about it to a couple of people personally in much more detail. But for the sake of other people involved, I don't want to go into it in a whole lot of, yeah, I don't want to, anyway. The very brief summary, which I'm not going to elaborate on, is that my wife and I have separated and I am no longer there at the house. So this comes down to what Sion was saying earlier about my battery being at 1%. Yeah, my battery is at 1%. And I'm not going to go into that situation any more than that. But that context is important in terms of the question that Dodgy asked, because Dodgy does know a bit of the backstory and changes that are being made at the house. So the house, the super house, where I've been for the last 22 years, maybe almost 23 years, something in that region, and has been featured on Superhouse videos and has all the modifications and automation and things like that. A few years ago, I did a video talking about something, I think it was something like preparing your home automation system for death. And it's the scenario where you have done a whole lot of work, made modifications to your house, got stuff installed, and then you are no longer there to deal with it. That's the general concept. What actually prompted it was Chris Yo, who I knew through LinuxConf, died of cancer a few years ago now. How long? It must be like 8 years or something. It's been a while now. And his wife Kelly had to deal with the automation system that he had installed in his house and kind of figure things out without his assistance because he was no longer around. And so Kelly had a bit of a, she had some things to deal with because she was dealing with not just the emotional situation of losing Chris, and with a young child at the same time, but then faced with the technical challenge of how to deal with the house. And that was a tough situation for her. So I did this video about thinking ahead, forward planning for when you are no longer around and what is going to happen to all the things that you have done in your home automation system. And I've been very conscious, particularly since Chris passed away, of documenting things. So there is actually a pretty decent guide. I've maintained a cabling guide that lists every single light switch in the house. It's the input channels, like how they're defined, every single output, all of the relays, what they control, all the wiring. There is a wiring labeling scheme. So you can get a cable and you know this particular cable is this channel on this patch panel, etc. So all of that is documented. I've also documented things like all of the Wi-Fi setup and the locations of access points, the passwords on everything. So it is probably pretty much as well documented as it could be. I've got things like the URLs of online services, like, and by online services I mean internal online services. Things like the Unify controller software, which is running in a virtual machine on a Synology NAS. But the thing is, if someone came in from the outside, they would have no idea that it's there. So there is this Unify network which is running in the house, running off a Unify controller, like the Unify controller software. But then what IP is the controller software on? What is the username and password for it? If you do access that service, like if you do know what IP address to go to load the control interface, what are you actually connecting to? How do they know that that is a VM running on a Synology NAS in a certain location? All of that is documented. I actually have, how long is it? It's like, I think I've got about a 30-page document for the house that lists things like all of these services. So for example, if you want to control the Unify network, you go to this IP address, like this URL basically, this IP address and port, log in with this username and password, and you get the management interface, and that management interface is running on a VM and the VM, etc., etc. Yeah. So a lot of that documentation is already in place, and I've been fairly fastidious about maintaining that over the years. And it exists in 2 physical places. So the way I've dealt with that is that I print out a hard copy of that document. It's maintained as a Google Doc. I print out a hard copy of it, put it on a clipboard, and there is one clipboard hanging in the switchboard in the garage and one clipboard in the switchboard at the other end of the house. So if, for example, an IT person or an electrician walks up to either of those locations, which is where all of the power control is and all of the patch panels and things, they open the door, first thing they see is a clipboard, and clipboard has the contact details of my electrician, and then it goes through all the details of every system in the house, how to access it, that sort of thing. So one of the things I've been doing just over the last couple of weeks is updating that document, making sure that it's accurate. But I've also been trying to simplify some things, because there are certain things in the house that were done because partly because I was experimenting with things and trying to learn about stuff. A lot of this is just me educating myself. It's me treating the house as if it's a big toy and modifying things because I just want to experiment. It's like fun projects to work on. But a lot of those things are not necessary. They're extra complications. They're things that don't really provide a lot of day-to-day benefit. They're just things that I did. So I'm trying to unwind some of those things. One of the things that I'm doing is actually I am removing the Unify network and switching over. This is going to sound strange, but in these particular circumstances, I think it's going to be the best outcome. I'm switching over to using what are now obsolete Apple Airport. So I've got an Airport Extreme and an Airport Express as the wireless base stations, which is actually what used to be in there before I went over to the Unify system. And the reason for that is that pretty much everything else in the house is, including Anne's computers and yeah, both the kids have Mac laptops. Everything else is Apple based, and it means that things like managing those can be done out of the Apple Airport utility very easily. And one of the reasons that I was going for the Unify thing was having multiple VLANs. So I've been running 4 VLANs in the house so that I could segment IoT devices and NOT devices, etc. So what I'm basically doing is flattening everything and simplifying things so that if someone else comes in, they're not faced with a big multi-layer spaghetti architecture, which is really overkill for a small domestic installation. So DIY in the Ghetto says, what about lights? If your home automation goes out, do the lights work manually? No, they don't. So there is the light switches are not switching electricity. Well, yes they are. They're not switching the mains. There is no direct mechanical switch that turns lights on and off. It has to be controlled by the automation system. So part of this also is that I am probably going to end up replacing all of the relays, the DIN rail mounted relays, which are currently controlled by it's by an Ether Mega actually. Ether Mega? Or is it? I think it's an Ether Mega. So Ethernet and MQTT control, which is firing all the relays. I'm possibly going to replace all of those with Shelly, I always get the order of this wrong, Shelly Pro 4PM, yeah, with Shelly Pro 4PM modules, because that way it's an Australian certified, commercially supported product. It's something that if one of them fails, you can just go and buy another one and plug it in, and there's a little bit of setup involved, but it's a known quantity. It's not a one-off thing that I made just for my own purposes. And oh, okay, interesting. So did I miss something that Andrew said? Because I just noticed that Chris said Andrew has a rather poignant, how do I pronounce that word? It's one of those words that I've read so many times I'm not even sure how to say it. Poignant. poignant point in that most tech is locked to an email address. It's a long discussion, but surely it's time email names were replaced with global, unique, lifelong ID. That's an interesting point. Poignant. Yes, thanks, Michael. And Andrew says, what I said earlier, not just home automation, any tech in the house. Globally unique IDs. Yes, tying things to email addresses is a problem. So many times there are logins to devices that are based on email, or the recovery is to a specific email. And then how do you transfer total control of a house where many of the devices within the house are logged into an online service and associated with an account that you don't necessarily want to take with you, but you also don't necessarily want to give up? It's a tough one. Yes. Andrew said, my ex-wife had told me I wasn't allowed to die. Yes. Yes. You build all this around a domain just for the house. Yeah, tourist. That's a good suggestion. Yeah. And as Scott said, very good reason for local control. Yeah. Oh. Once again, my battery is flat. But yeah, it is an important point. Dodgy brought up this topic about what are my plans for the house. The thing is that it's still early in the process. I'm still figuring it out, and I'm figuring it out in the context of not being in the greatest headspace possible. And that's still better than me just not being there, which would be the worst scenario. Would be if something bad happened to me, or if I was the sort of person who would just say, screw it, I don't care anymore, I'm gone. But I'm not that sort of person. So my goal is to make the house as robust as possible and as simple as possible. Now, one of the things that I may end up doing from a user interface point of view, I'm not sure about this yet, but I've been thinking about replacing the illuminated push button panels, the light switches, with just regular off-the-shelf light switches, you know, the rocker type, and changing the Rack32 firmware so that it is using switch mode instead of button mode. And the reason for that is just familiarity. It's overcoming that thing where someone comes in. I still get this all the time. Like, people come to visit and the light switch is an illuminated button, and they walk up to it and they go, I don't want to touch it because I don't know what it will do. It's like, press the button, it turns the lights on and off. Just that degree of difference from a regular system is real. It's enough to totally throw people. And the thing is that if I put regular light switches on there, which are then feeding into the automation system, behind the scenes everything is working exactly the same. But it just means that you walk up and you flick the switch and then the lights turn on or off, instead of you walk up and you press the button and the lights turn on or off. So I'm thinking also about making those sorts of changes to the house to remove the alienness of the automation system and just make it feel much more comfortable and familiar. And I think that will help in terms of the feeling that it is a system that needs me there to be looking after it and babysitting it. Andrew says, bell push mechanism look like a switch but spring back to off. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. So it looks like a flick switch, but then that might be enough to throw people as well, because it breaks the association between flick the switch one way and the lights are on, flick it the other way and the lights are off. And I think that's partly what the disconnect is with going to a button-based system, is that people are so programmed to thinking of flick the switch one way it's on, flick it the other way it's off, that when you go for something like a button, press it and it goes on, press it again and it turns off. It's just that lack of familiarity. Yeah. Yeah, and as Andrew said, they'd have to switch it to no. Yeah. Yes. Sorry. Also asked, do you intend to automate your workspace similarly? Smart Office. Yes, I am definitely going to do that. And in fact, that was one of the considerations for where the rack is physically located. So the server rack, which you kind of just saw the back of as I was walking around, is going to be inside the cleanish room, and it is physically positioned so that you can see it through the glass wall, but it's off against the end wall. And the reason for that is I want to put things like, I want that loaded with OXRS gear. And I want it set up so that people can come in here and just look through the glass, see the rack, and yeah, and have it all work. In fact, I've already got OXRS type light switches mounted on the wall here. I just don't have the light switch controller hooked up at the moment, but I will get to that. At the moment, everything here is controlled from my phone. So I've used the Node-RED dashboard, and every single device in here, like every individual outlet, is controlled and power monitored through Node-RED. So yeah, the entire system is already automated. A couple of people getting my attention there. Sion has taken on the role of lunch police, and my stomach is definitely thanking you. 12:02 p.m. alert lunchtime, and Austin said, I'm going to DM you, have some OXRS news for you. Ooh, awesome. Yes, I know that there is, yeah, where is Peter? I haven't seen Peter on here today. So, yes, I've seen that there have been many commits, and there has been some, it looks like there's been a whole lot of work on the touch panel interface, which is really cool. I definitely want to check that out. So yeah, Austin, I'm excited to get back into some OXRS stuff and see what we can do. Because I definitely want to use the lab, my test environment. So I'm going to have, yeah, I'm probably going to use one of your touchscreen type things, stick it over on the wall. I want to put everything in here. Yes. So I am, because yes, my battery is now flat. Paul says, I look like Kratos now from God of War. I don't know. I don't know who Kratos is, or is God of War a game? I think it might be. It's not a movie, is it? I don't know. Yes. I don't know if that's a compliment or not. I'm going to go and look up Kratos now. See who Kratos is. I will. Thanks, Paul. So I am going to go, but hopefully now that I've done this, I am back into the sequence of doing live streams. I've really missed this. It is so good to chat to you all, and I also want to get back onto Discord. I've been hiding myself a little bit because of just the circumstances that I've been in, but it's no good being isolated when there are so many interesting people doing cool things, and I love talking to you all. So yes, back on the wagon, Sion. I am back on the wagon. I'm back. I'm going to go and have some lunch because I am really surprisingly hungry, and thank you to everyone. Well, Gerald42, you're awesome. And I will, yeah, I'll be back again, back with more streams and back working on things. Hopefully now I've got through this crunch time, got some boards done for some clients, and I want to get the access point done, get other projects back underway. OXRS stuff, so many fun, interesting things to work on. Yeah. So let's keep playing this game of life and keep it fun. And go and build something awesome.